Hello and welcome to Stories That Shape Us. My name is Joanna Daniel. In today's story, I want to talk about you. As I do, I want to talk about how sometimes we allow ourselves to be burdened with other people's opinions, how sometimes we allow other people's opinions to come in and to change who we see ourselves, how we see ourselves, how we manage our lives, and just the story that we tell ourselves on a day-to-day basis. How sometimes we give people so much power over us based on their opinion of us. And how and I'm hoping that what you'll get from this is how to not let other people's perspective of you determines who you are, how to not let other people's perspective of you write a new description for your life, write a new, determine how you see yourself and change your view of you. Sometimes other people's perspective of us connects with the stories that we've been told our whole lives, the way people have seen us and treated us, and some of the words sometimes that they say to us. And so as we grow up, as we grow old, as we become adults, it's easy then for us to not do the work of knowing who we are and just settle into how others see us. So a couple of things I want to say about that before I go into the different people and the power that they have over our thought processes. But when we sometimes the people's perspective of us comes from stories that we've been told early, and we grew up believing those stories, and it makes it easier for us to hear it, for us to integrate it into our lives, and for us to act it. So say, for example, for those in our community who I know is healing from narcissistic abuse, like whether it's a mother or a spouse. So there's something really challenging about it sometimes when it's compounded. For example, when you grew up hearing negative feedback from your mother. So there are a couple of things about feedback. Feedback isn't bad. And even though we get negative feedback, it doesn't mean that that's true, or it doesn't mean that that's the right perspective of you. Sometimes these feedbacks come from people's own view and perceptions of themselves. They don't have all the information at hand. And so the feedback is based on assumptions, a lot of assumptions. But people like to be right. And so when they have an assumption about you, they want to hold on to that, and they don't want the inconvenience of having to consider the truth. So when the truth is presented, it's inconvenient. So they don't want to consider it because they want to hold the view of you that they have, and they want to continue to believe that. So, sometimes I say to people, it's a waste of time to try to find the people who they tell, or try to tell this person the truth, because they're not interested in the truth. They want to believe what they believe about you. For me, what's important is, what do you believe about you? And that's what's really crucially important. What do you believe about you? That's what we need to fix. Because when we can find the root of what you believe about you, then it doesn't matter what anybody else think, because then you'll be so strong in yourself and in who you know you are, that even though the feedback is negative coming from an authority figure or coming from somebody who you value their opinion, it won't shake you. But when we don't do the work of understanding ourselves and getting to know ourselves and sitting with whatever feelings and pain and unresolved issues that we have, then it's very easy for people to give us negative feedback, and we believe it. We fall into it. Sometimes we collapse into it. And it really does sometimes inform our lives. So how could you not let how what are the things that you can do to not allow other people's perspective of you to determine who you are? Now, as I said earlier, sometimes the perspective mirrors what your mother used to say. And if she was an unloving, harsh, critical woman, then the feedback that she'd give you about yourself will be like that. But that is not because you are like that. It's because she is like that. And likewise for your father or any caregiver in your life, When they were doing that, it's not because you were that person, it's because they were that person and they were giving you feedback about yourself based on them, not you. Because sometimes people like that will not, they don't have the love and the care and the compassion, the time or the insight. They're not able to self-reflect. They're not emotionally intelligent most of the time. And so they're not going to be able to give you balanced feedback based on you and who they know you to be. It's going to be coming from them. So whether it's a mother or a narcissistic spouse, sometimes living through abusive relationships gives us a view of ourselves that is really not based on who we are, but based on who the abuser is. And we believe you may have lived a long time believing certain things about yourself to be true, where and internalize these, and now you're really trying, you can't see the wood from the trees and you don't know who you are. So you may have heard negative feedback so many times over the years. It's very hard to know what's true to you or what isn't. What is coming from them, and what is really you. It might be really difficult to sort through the rubble of all of that, to shut down the noise of what they've always said, and to spend time with you and with God to discover who you are. Last weekend I did a presentation with a group of women around identity. And, this is part of the work to identify who you are. What are your gifts? What are your talents? What are your likes? What are your dislikes? Just to get to know who you are. Otherwise, you will spend your life trying to be a version of you that they say you are. And you can make your way back. It's very difficult to make your way back, but you can, with support, make your way back, even after spending many years of living a version of you that they say, not the version of you that you are, or what you know about yourself, or even the self that you're discovering. And sometimes there are people that are afraid to spend time with discovering, well, who am I? Is sometimes that can be really challenging to do. But I want to encourage you to spend time to discover, to not be afraid of what you might discover, because the negative feedback might tell you that the person that you're discovering you won't like, but that's not true, because remember, the feedback is not about you, it's about them. So how do you not allow that to impact? If you recognize that people's view of you and the feedback that they give is impacting and is influencing the life that you're leading, the career choice, how you parent, how you love, or you're allow loving, whether you allow loving, and it really is crowding in and taking up space in your life and in your thoughts and in your behavior, and it's impacting your life, it's probably time to sit back and take a deep breath and start to ask the who am I question, so that you can know who you are. Because remember, truth sets us free. They don't have the truth. They're not holder of the truth about who you are. God knows who you are, and He's the only one that can tell you who you are. So spend time discovering who you are, so that the only perspective of you that's going to influence you is how you see you and how God sees you. Nobody else's. Of course, we're not saying not to take feedback. We're not saying feedback is always going to be positive, but we want to know the difference, and we want to know feedback that mirrors what we know already, and not feedback that is coming from people who are in their broken state trying to break you because of how they're feeling about themselves inside. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode of Stories That Shape Us. I hope you'll join me on the next story.